Today, I'm diving into a topic that's close to every parent's heart, and that's effective communication with our kids. If you've ever found yourself wondering if you're doing this parenting thing right, no, you're not alone. And the fact that you clicked on this video means you're probably doing a great job. But in this video, I'll give you 5 powerful phrases that will transform your approach to parenting even more. If you can master these, you are well on your way to creating a nurturing environment where your child feels seen, heard, and loved. And truthfully, you're probably doing it already. So whether you're facing tantrums, navigating tough conversations as they grow, or just trying to build a stronger bond rooted in trust and safety, these 5 phrases are essential tools for every parent. And if you're new here, my name is Rachel from Confidently Mom. I share baby and toddler product reviews as well as embodied parenting tips. All right, let's dive in. You're a good kid having a hard time. This idea comes from Dr. Becky, who wrote the book Good Inside, which I have not read yet, but from what I've seen of her, her parenting style most aligns with my own. And once I heard her say this, I immediately adopted it. As a kid, I often chose to do the right thing, but I had a lot going on beneath the surface, energetically with guilt patterns. I have Scorpio in the first house, which kind of makes me the most likely suspect. And it really got me labeled as a bad kid by a lot of the adults around me without much merit. And as I grew older, I realized it had a lot more to do with them, but the damage was done. And unfortunately, that ultimately became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And by my late teen years, I believed the labels the adults had put on me and started to make choices in accordance with those labels. And so I bring this up because holding this belief about your kids or even your parenting, I'm a good mom having a hard time right now, can be a foundational phrase that all these other ones I'm going to talk about today build upon. I also love this phrase because it introduces an element of internal family systems, which believes we are made up of distinctive parts. And with that awareness, when those different parts come up at different times, it can be easier to accept, integrate, and heal them. And kind of on that note of good and bad in understanding different parts that make us human, we adopted using the phrases red choices and green choices about our behaviors because I found that it was too easy to associate good and bad with defining one's character. So again, creating that sort of separation between good and bad being up for debate for your child's character really helps everybody kind of de-escalate and find a lot of compassion and acceptance when you are working through hard times. Number 2, I see you and. So this concept is derived from a lot of Buddhist teachings around duality and the idea that 2 truths can exist. It gives us a beautiful framework for understanding the complexities of life, which is a critical skill we'll need as we get older. But when just starting out for kids, I like to focus this idea on a more concrete reality, and we pair that with a larger truth that the child needs to integrate, and that truth is going to be what helps the child regulate their feelings as well as encourages their understanding and growth. So this could look like pairing a validation statement with a growth mindset statement, or validation statement with some sort of personal responsibility, with limits or safety, or fill in the blank. So a few examples of this. I see you're upset about cleaning up, and everybody in our family has a job to do because teamwork makes the dream work. Is there any way that you can make this more fun for yourself, whether it's a robot cleanup or a dance party cleanup? I see you're mad about my choice, and it's my job to keep you safe. Can I answer any questions to help you better understand my choice? I see you're frustrated trying to figure that out right now, and I know you've solved hard problems in the past, like when you did X, Y, or Z. Do you think you could switch anything up to make some progress on this? Number 3, can you say more? This is super important when kids bring up a problem, story, or statement to you as like a confiding moment. Oftentimes they are bringing that up because they're unsure how they feel about it, but they know they're feeling something and they want you to help them process it. And this is kind of a parenting trap I see a lot of people fall into, where they respond from their own wounding or projections, and their inner work or lack of inner work ends up coming out in their response to the child. And this is where we pass down generational trauma because of how we are telling our story to our children to become part of their story. Don't worry, I'm going to teach you guys how to get out of that. So next time your child comes to you with something, instead of being like, I want to get that kid for saying that thing to my kid, what you're going to do is you're going to pause. And before you jump into your own interpretation, slow down and get curious. Can you say more about that? I personally love this question because it is so open-ended and you would be shocked what the kids come back with. But if your kid does get stuck, because it does happen, you can try asking any of these follow-up questions. What do you think about that? What was happening right before? What happened after? Really, just the more questions you can get to build those skills up in your kid, the better. If they need help, if they're like, I want to talk to this person about it, you can ask them, okay, well, what do you want to say? Okay, what if we try it like this? What if we try it like this? Is that what you're trying to say? And just keep asking questions until they find that innate, ooh, that's it. That's what I want to do. So you're building that skill up alongside of them and not just teaching them to label, judge, cut and run from various relationships. Really, once you've gathered all of that information, it becomes a lot easier to understand the skill that your child is looking to build up and give them a really safe and supportive framework for approaching not only how they relate to themselves and others, but the whole world. I also really love to do this "can you say more" response because it gives you a moment as a parent, if you were triggered, your childhood stuff came up, to actually regulate yourself down before you go into teacher, counselor, parent, helper mode, whatever it is you like to call it. So I just think it gives this really beautiful opportunity to practice your own personal regulation. And at the end of the day, that's a whole conversation on neuroplasticity, and how you handle yourself is really how your kids are going to model handling themselves in the future. So we'll save that conversation for another time. Number 4, you are more important to me than that mess, than the mistake, than the other kid, whatever it is. And this piggybacks off of the first phrase I gave you guys, you're a good kid having a hard time, but is so, so, so important, especially for littles who are building new skills and making a lot of mistakes along the way. And especially if you're the type of mom, I'm guilty here, this is me, who grew up with a relatively unsafe feeling nervous system. So maybe your no is kind of disproportionate to the situation at hand, which can seem a little scary. But more than that, this is really about building a deeper connection to your child. I especially love to use it if my kids are bringing me a problem or situation that is rooted in guilt or shame, because it immediately puts me on their side first and foremost. I see this as another huge parenting trap that we fall into, because a lot of the times when our kids tell us something, especially if they were kind of the one to mess up in that situation, and I'm speaking socially here, we kind of jump into trying to fix or change their behavior because none of us want to raise sociopaths. But what that immediately does is it conflicts with that first statement, you're a good kid having a hard time, or it puts us in opposition to our kids. So before we can really go into coaching them, building up skills for better ways that they could have handled a situation, we want to make sure that we are establishing that we are on the same side, that we'll always have their back, that this mistake does not define them or make you think any less of them, and they're going to be in a much more teachable place after we do that. And this is really important for them building their own lifelong resiliency. Because again, if you are always taking the opposition side and validating that your kid did something wrong, you are creating a massive gap for the world to come in and tell your kid how to think about themselves, like I was talking about with myself as a kid. Eventually, they're gonna think they are the problem. So we really want to establish that safety and trust first, and reminding them who they are and that they are valued at their core above any other thing as the number one move. So whether it's that the teacher pulled you aside because your kid didn't clean up at school, or they made a mean picture about another kid, you pause. You're not raising a sociopath. You're more important to me than the mess at school. You're more important to me than what the teacher says about you. You're more important to me than that picture. From there, you can get curious about what led them up to that point in making that red choice, like I talked about earlier. And then you guys can really work together to build out the skills they need to make green choices for themselves, and not because they are trying to get a certain reaction out of other people. Number 5, being part of this family means we're all in this together. We'll get through this together. I'll always be here for you, even if you're mad. We will work through this disagreement. Teamwork makes the dream work. We all have a job to do, or fill in the blank. Okay, and before I go any further, I want to pause and say, I know this phrase is a little bit tricky for some people watching, because this very phrase can be finished with a very punitive statement. Being part of this family means doing as I say. And while I do not condone using this phrase in a harsh or punitive way that instills fear in your child, I do think it's a really important phrase to understand that kids want to know that they belong somewhere, that they are part of something. And so I would say, go find the kids whose parents completed that phrase in a harsh or punitive way and ask them how many years of their life they spent trying to make peace with their family or just trying to make it work. Because I promise you, usually those are the people that have the greatest sense of abandonment and the greatest desire to belong somewhere. Even if families did use this phrase in a punitive way, those kids probably still wish they could wave a magic wand and they could be part of their family, just that their family was different. It was safer. So if we can use this phrase with some sort of beautiful and supportive and uplifting statement, because every single one of us wants to know we have a place in this world. This phrase has the potential for so much magic and healing. I'd love to hear in the comments what other phrases really work for your family. Help some other families out. Let's give each other some ideas. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, hit that subscribe and notification bell so you don't miss future videos. And also, if you want, drop your email at the link in the description box to get notified when my parenting course launches in 2025. In the meantime, be sure to go back and check out these other videos.